Personal protection, Barney Fife versus Paul Kersey. So I thought it might be an interesting test to test some old school ammo in 38 Special and 32 Smith & Wesson Long, because, you know, Barney Fife did carry a 38 Special revolver, and Paul Kersey in the first Death Wish movie carried a 32 Smith & Wesson Long revolver. Now, both of those were 4-inch Colt revolvers. I believe the Colt Official Police 38 Special, and in the Death Wish movie it was the Colt Police Positive in 32 Long. And those both had 4-inch barrels. So what I have today also have 4-inch barrels. Smith & Wesson 686, that's actually a 4 1/8 inch barrel. And my Ruger SP101, that has a 4.2 inch barrel. So very close to overall barrel length there. So this should be interesting. It's hard to track down the actual ammo, but there is some episodes of Andy Griffith's show where it does show Barney with a lead round nose 38 Special. With 32 Long, you never know. I mean, it is just a movie, but I did see some pictures of the bullets in one of those scenes, like pulled from a body, and it looked like it probably had a jacket. But again, this is just movie stuff. None of that's really accurate, but you know, these are pretty common rounds back in the day, so I think it would be a good idea to just test the round nose here. So our 38 Special, that is rated at 997 feet per second, and is a 158 grain. Our 32 Long is a 100 grain, and it is rated at 853 feet per second. It does say lead round nose, even though the nose is a little bit flat, so interesting there. So we're going to go through the chronograph, see what kind of velocity and accuracy we get at the same time. Then I'm going to do my 10% clear ballistic gel test. So we're going to go into plain 10% clear ballistics to see what the best potential those are. No fabric in the way, and no rib simulation that could slow down its potential for penetration. We'll see how those do on our plain clear ballistics shot. Then I'm going to move on to doing a real world simulation. 4 layers of sweatshirt material, followed by 3 inches of clear ballistics that represents hitting a pectoral muscle, followed by a 1/4 inch medium density fiberboard that represents hitting ribs or sternum, 16 more inches of clear ballistics, and another 1/4 inch MDF at the back to represent hitting back ribs. In that format, the ballistics gel is roughly half as dense as a real living target. So if you were to get like 16 inches in the gel, it would be more like 8 inches in a real living target. So we'll do our real world simulation. Before that, we'll do our plain clear ballistics shot, and then I will shoot at the steel target to see what kind of practical accuracy and shootability I can get with these. So let's get started with this test. All right, first up, we'll run our 38 Special. This is rated at 997 feet per second. Most 38 Special lead round nose is rated at, like, I don't know, 800, 850 feet per second. So 997 seems a little bit optimistic for a 38 Special 158 grain, but let's see what I get here out of my 4-inch barrel Smith & Wesson 686. See how close we get to 997 feet per second. $869, 919, 980, 940, 946, 931. So that actually is a little bit warmer than typical, but it started out kind of low velocity, so not super consistent. Now our 32 Long, this is rated at 853 feet per second. So that is a little bit warm compared to most 32 Longs also. So let's see how close we get to 853 out of my 4.2 inch barrel here. $773. 773, 779, 778, 792, 781. So nowhere near that rate of velocity, but the consistency is really good, so I do like that. Let's hit our ballistics gel block and see how these compare. All right, first up, we'll do our plain clear ballistics shot. This is kind of like a flesh shot without bones in there, and it's our best potential. You know, there's no fabric that can potentially clog a hollow point if they were a hollow point. Obviously, I don't need that for this test, but I like to stay consistent from test to test. So no fabric there, no rib simulation that can slow these down. So let's see how 38 Special compares to 32 Long. So 38 Special. All right, let's hit that with our 32 Smith & Wesson Long. So take a look. All right, so with how hard that 38 actually hit the block, I thought for sure it went deeper than what it would have went, or it would have went deeper than it did. What we can say is it hit hard and did a lot of tumbling, because that big old fat track there is from it tumbling, and the bullet is backwards, and the bullet is backwards also with the 32 long. So a big difference there in the potential damage these can cause. So what we got going on here with our 38 special, we got almost exactly 18 inches, so that's kind of a perfect amount of penetration. Now, it did have a lot more recoil than the 32 long. In the 32 long, it didn't cause a lot of tumbling damage, so it likely didn't tumble much. And it went to an adequate penetration of about 13 3/4. It just didn't do as much damage, but I mean, the penetration's adequate with like half the recoil, so both did pretty well, I would say. Let's do our real world simulation and see how they do now. All right, our real world simulation: 4 layers of sweatshirt material followed by 3 inches of clear ballistics to represent hitting a pectoral muscle, followed by a 1/4 inch medium density fiber board to represent hitting ribs or sternum, 16 more inches of clear ballistics, and another 1/4 inch MDF at the back to represent hitting back ribs. I like to keep these bullets within that back rib simulation if possible, because that will keep most of that energy inside the living target. So we'll see how these do in our real world simulation. 38 special. All right. Let's hit that with that 32 long. Go take a look. All right, so a pretty good difference there. Let's take a look at our rib simulation. And our 38's tumbling a little bit more than our 32 long, and I forgot to mention that in the flame gel shot. Yeah, that likely is because of the bullet shape is being a little bit different with the 32 long. A little bit of a flat tip there can cause the penetration to go a little bit deeper. So again, we got some tumbling right here with our 38 special. And I would say overall, this penetration with this 38 special is pretty ideal. We got about 14 3/4 to about 15 inches with our 38 special. With our 32 long, it's a little shallow. It's about 11.5 inches. That's right on that edge there. That should be enough penetration most of the time. That 12-inch minimum that you hear, you know, the FBI quoting and all that, that's going through the arm shot, through a bone, through the arm, then through the ribs and all that. Very unlikely you'll need a shot like that, but even at 11.5 inches, that's pretty close to getting to what you want to get. So both did pretty well, but obviously our 38 special did a lot better. So back in the day, if Barney Fife had to stop somebody, honestly, he could probably do it very effectively. Paul Kersey with this 32, well, it'll work, but I don't think it would be dropping guys quite as quickly. So obviously our 38's a little more effective, but I mean, the 32's more shootable. I'll give it that. Let's please out of the block. We'll take a close-up look at these bullets, and I'll shoot our steel target and see what kind of practical accuracy and shootability I can get with these. All right, so here's a close-up look at these bullets going through plain gel. Here's our 38 special, and here is our 32 long. So these are definitely very soft bullets. I barely touch them with the knife to cut them out, and they get cuts on them just from touching it barely. So, but no change to these bullets really. Here's our 38 special. They do have a little bit of a concave base to them. I don't know why this company does that, but, and our 32 also kind of a concave base. Now these bullets are so soft that they did deform quite a bit. Now if you look at our 32 compared to the plain gel shot with our real world simulation here, huge difference there. They really deformed, flattened, with not that much energy on them. Now we can see with this 38 through our real world simulation, we picked up some fabric and it also bent a little bit. So again, indication that it's pretty soft. It's not super soft because it didn't like bend in half. I've almost seen bullets bend in half, but yeah, flattened a little bit there and a little bit of deformation overall. So pretty soft bullets, but overall, not bad looking. So that's a close-up look of those bullets. All right, 14 yards from the target, my distance I normally do my practical shootability drills from. So I like to see if there's a big difference in the recoil and the shootability, see if it's a lot easier for me to land rapid shots on target. I like to do something fun. I was thinking maybe I could put my gun in my holster and have it negligently discharged, but it's a little too muddy and a little too dangerous to do something like that. But I thought, how about fire one of these shots like this? That's the first shot in the Death Wish movie. I wonder how practical that is, especially for someone that hasn't shot in a while. And you know, I haven't shot like this before. I haven't really tried it, so I'll probably miss with both of these, but just doing a shot like that, we'll see how both of these feel. So let me do one shot with a 38 like this. Wow. I'm surprised I hit it. Honest to God, I've not practiced that before this. I just thought, let's see what happens. So I'm trying to think about where these line up. I'll try it with the 32. Oh. See, I shot way over the target with that. So honestly, with the 38, it's a little more effective. I've had this gun a lot longer, but we'll do some shots and see if there's a big difference in practical recoil and shootability, just popping them off. So 38 special. Let's just shoot a little bit high for me. Very easy to shoot though. 32 long. I missed one. I think it's this revolver. A lot of times the trigger is so different on this. It's so much longer that I'll pull it back and then it's like I'm kind of pulling it up a little bit too high. It just doesn't feel the same as that Smith & Wesson. So I do that quite a bit, but I'm gonna fire from a little more distance and just try to get some accuracy, see how they do when I really take my time and line up my sights, and see if there's a big difference between 38 special and 32 long. All right, 40 yards from the target. So this is our dick and drill distance, and there's been multiple incidences where 40 to 42 yards was the distance where somebody stopped a dangerous threat from. Both those times happened to be mass shooters, and they were stopped with handguns at 40 to 42 yards. So I think it's relevant to look at this stuff and just kind of see how they shoot. So I'm just gonna fire slow and see if I can hit the target and see if there's a big difference between 38 special and 32 long. 38 special. One of those shots, I was way off and it didn't seem like anything normal. Like I jerked the shot because it was really far off. So either I grazed the target and it went flying up, or something was a little bit off with that bullet and it maybe grazed the forcing cone and did something to that bullet. I'm not sure. But overall, they shoot pretty good. Now they do shoot high, and I was anticipating that because of that 14-yard drill I did. So I did aim at the very, bottom half of the target, and most of them hit the top half of that target. But overall, the consistency of accuracy is pretty good. So 32 long. See how this does. Huh. Those just weren't quite right. I saw one go to the left of the target, and it looks like some of the other hits are to the left significantly. Most ammo shoots pretty good out of this revolver, so it's just that ammo doesn't like this revolver quite right now. I'd have to adjust for it if that was going to be my primary ammo. But it definitely doesn't hit the target as hard. So looking at this, honestly, there's a big difference here. A big difference. A lot of people want to scoff at 38 special, people that carry 9mm or whatever, or even people that carry 357 Magnum. But honestly, from the data I've seen and some of all the data I've looked through, and in my personal experience testing ammo, honestly, the 38 special is just as capable as the 9mm, even though it typically has less energy. And I would say with the 158 grain lead round nose, it might actually be more capable than a lot of different rounds, just because it hits with a lot of bullet mass, which accounts for good momentum and penetration and all of that, and it tumbles. I mean, the old school data only shows this stuff at like maybe 52% one-shot stop as compared to hollow points being higher. I don't know what it is for the 32 long, but what I can say, just judging by my gut feeling here, is if I had to stop a threat with 38 special, I don't think it would be a problem even with this lead round nose stuff. So if we look at Barney Fife's load, you know, bank robbers or other bad people would be, they'd be in some trouble if he actually wanted to stop them. 32 long, it's a little bit unimpressive. It's cool, it's low recoil, all of that, and yes, it's deadly, obviously. But I could see, just going by my gut feeling here and seeing, you know, some of the stuff I've seen in footage and looking at all the data and just coming to a conclusion here, I think you might be in a situation with 32 long where you might pump 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 rounds into someone that's trying to harm you, and it might not stop them very quickly. As where with the 38, I think a couple of 38s and they're probably gonna go down. So that's just my gut feeling on that. So big difference here. Even though they seem similar, there's a big difference. I would carry 38 special. With 32, I would not carry the 32 long. I would go up to 327 Federal, maybe 32 H&R Magnum. So interesting test. That's what you get today. So as always, comment, share, and like. And Barney beat Paul Kersey. That's what you get today. So as always, comment, share, and like. And thanks for watching.